So now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Unfortunately, one of them can't make it today. So our speaker is going to be Christine Maxoud. You should be able to see her on your screen. Um, she's normally based, I think, in Dubai, but she's zooming in from somewhere else. She's a globetrotter by the sound of it. Some of us are as well, but not me. Um, So I'm going to pass straight over to Christine. She's going to have plenty of time for Q&As at the end of her session. So if you have any questions or comments, if you can put your virtual hand up so we can take people in order. And if you physically can't organise that, then your screen, if you put your hand up, will come to you as well. But for the moment, over to you, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, and good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you this morning. It's almost noon where I am right now. I'm based in Dubai. I'm just connecting from Sharjah, just an hour and a half from Dubai. My name is Christine Maksoud. I'm a qualified lawyer in Lebanon. I'm also an England and Wales solicitor. I've started my mediation career since 2010, as in my first mediation accreditation in 2010. It was very early for me, to be honest. I didn't know what to do at the time. I knew I would never get any appointment at that age. So the first thing I did is try to give some nonviolent communication courses as part of a peer mediation program in Lebanon. I did some community mediation as well, but also in Lebanon, it was still, I mean, the mediation was still in the very early stages, whether a training or practice. So I practiced as a lawyer for 5 years, and then I moved to Dubai to join Altamimi and Company. It's one of the leading regional law firms, and I've been with them for almost 10 years now. To Dubai, I mean, also, I realized that there are no mediation legislation or mediation practice. So I thought maybe this is it for me. I wouldn't have the chance to realize my mediation dream. But in 2021, we saw the first mediation law being issued in the UAE, and that was a big deal at the time. The thing is, not many people even knew about it or used it. It was still just another law. And I thought maybe it's the right time for me to do something about it. 2 years later, another law was issued, and we had two kind of laws. We had the mediation law and another conciliation law, which is the court annexed conciliation. But still, I mean, not many lawyers even knew about it, or even mediation users, or in the community in general. In 2023, I had a chance to get a fellowship, the Weinstein Jams Fellowship in the US. And that was a turning point, I think, in my life. When I went there, I went with the project. I mean, what can I do in my country, which is now the UAE, after 10 years of being here? What can I do to actually advance mediation? And I thought about many things. I met a lot of people. I asked them, you live in a mature jurisdiction. What kind of advice do you have for me? And I got many feedback and ideas. But then the only thing that I realized at the time is that we have legislation. So, I mean, the government believe in that. I'm going to talk about that later. We also starting seeing training institutions delivering accredited trainings, IMI accredited and others, even CEDAR. We saw a lot of international mediators starting to do some sort of marketing for themselves in the region, some conferences here and there, a few panels talking about the subject. So we realized that a lot of even local people are trying to also get accreditation. So I realized that we basically have everything. We have also some rules from arbitration institution. So it seems that the ecosystem is, in a way or another, starting to shape up. But really, the utilization of mediation and the adoption by the community was very far. especially the legal community, let alone the business community. So then this is when I thought at the time, and I actually drafted the business plan when I was in San Francisco during my fellowship, and that we need an entity that is independent for certain people or promoting something like any commercial interest, but really just an entity that connects all these stakeholders together. And because when you see that there is no adoption or the utilization for mediation, it means either some of the stakeholders have some concerns that are not voiced, or maybe there is no enough awareness about that. So this is when the idea of the mediation hub came to me. And then immediately after I came back, Jan 2024, I just put this plan in place. I registered a nonprofit organization in the DIFC. For those who don't know what DIFC is, it's the Dubai International Financial Center. In the UAE, we have 7 emirates, we have federal laws, and we have local laws, but also we have certain free zones. Some of them have their own rules. Like, for example, we have the DIFC and the ADGM, the Abu Dhabi Global Market. These are common law jurisdictions where they apply their own laws and English law as well. And they have their own courts as well. So I went and registered the Mediation Hub as a nonprofit organization in the DIFC. And to be honest with you, I wasn't, I mean, I had a lot of dreams and hopes, but I didn't know where this is going to go. Is this just going to be another organization that wouldn't get noticed and no one will care about, joining or being part of it? Or maybe it will be the start of something big. I had also 2 co-founders, Dr. Ahmed Al-Uzun. He was supposed to be with us today, but for some really reasons outside his control, he wasn't able to join. Also, we had Mahmoud Murad. He's the chairman of the mediation panel at the Dubai Legal Affairs Department at the time. And, they were my co-founders, and we all had, a lot of, ideas we wanted to execute, but we didn't know the appetite for the market for it. But then really shortly after, we started getting a lot of requests from many people in the market wanting to join as members. So today, after a couple of years since our launch, we have more than 120 members, and we have categories for members. We have the professionals, we have the rising mediators, we have the organizations, and the mediation advocates, which we developed later because we wanted really to have one centralized platform that includes everyone involved in the mediation ecosystem. We also realized that a lot of trainings are being promoted in the market, but everyone asks after those trainings, what's next for me? Okay, I get the accreditation, but how do I practice? If there is no market for mediation yet, I mean, how do I get my practice? So we thought that this is our responsibility to first hear those people, hear their concerns, and try to establish initiatives that could help this new generation or the next generation of mediators to learn and practice. But also, because we are in a green field, we also wanted the international mediators that have interest in the region to have a place to showcase their experience and to share knowledge and mentor the local mediators. So, and since 2023, when we had the federal law on mediation, that law has included also the court annex conciliation. So today, we have the mediation, which can be private mediation or by court referral, or what we call judicial mediation. And we have the conciliation, which is the court annexed services. This is mandatory in specific types of disputes, depending on the volume, sometimes the relationship between the parties, if they're relatives up to 4th degree or spouses, but if the dispute is commercial, of course. So there are some, requirements and criteria for that. But unfortunately, even that kind of service, what was kind of treated by the parties and their lawyers as a box ticking exercise, and that really didn't help promote that concept. So anyone who wasn't being made familiar with the process as a user and goes to these kind of services, they wouldn't have maybe the best experience because maybe the lawyer has advised or they don't know about it. So then we started doing initiatives with the legal community, from conferences, from webinars, and really talking to lawyers, mediation advocacy. We participated, a lot of our members participated in initiatives in mediation advocacy because really the legal affairs department realized that we need to start with lawyers. They are the gatekeepers, as we call them everywhere. So we started the legal affairs of doing mediation advocacy as a mandatory course as part of the continuing development. And that has helped a lot, to be honest, in really educating lawyers, whether Western or Arabs, and especially when it's in their countries. I think
Christine,
Just lost
your
sound for a minute,
audio.
Christine.
sorry, where did you, I'm sorry, where did you lose me?
Just a sound, just 2 moments ago.
Well,
Recap.
last 60 seconds, if you could repeat the last 60
Okay,
seconds.
I'm sorry for that. Okay, so I was
Thank you.
saying, when it comes to we all know that, if you actually aware of that, but Dubai is really a place where you can find diversity of lawyers and from different nationalities, different backgrounds. I'm saying when it comes to more Western lawyers, they've probably had access, of they've encountered mediation in some capacity back in their home countries. But when it comes to Arab lawyers, whether from the UAE or any other Arab country in the region, maybe they needed a little bit more awareness about the concept because they don't have a benchmark or something to really compare it to. So we noticed, I mean, in these sessions that it has helped a lot of people to really understand the process. There was a lot of misconceptions that these courses have tried to really adjust, and we think that it did have a lot of impact. And this is, again, it's an initiative by a government entity. So as you can see from what I just said until now, it looks no, it looks like I believe that the government has a clear objective to promote mediation and to encourage its adoption, which is really amazing. And you don't find it in any other countries. It's usually maybe the other way around. It's more of a bottom-up approach rather than top-down. But that is evidenced from all the legislations and the initiatives that were led by the government, by the legislator, or by government or semi-government owned entities. So as we stand today, we have many arbitration institutions that have their own mediation rules, even government entities, like for example, the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, they have their own mediation services. There are mediation centers that are being established. So the Legal Affairs Department really was a pioneer in that, and they announced that they're launching a mediation center in partnership with a leading European center, the ADR Center, and this is gonna happen this year. So this is really one of the the key developments in the market. Also, earlier this year, we've seen the DFC that I introduced before, also launching their own mediation center, which is the common law jurisdiction, in ADGM, which is the common law free zone in Abu Dhabi. They have court annexed mediation. It's pro bono, it's for free, just for any cases referred by the court. We have Arbitrate AD, which is also an arbitration center in Abu Dhabi. They're also expected to launch their own mediation rules. DIAC, and I left DIAC to the end because I want to say another key initiative that we've done with them, the Dubai International Arbitration Center, which is the leading arbitration center in Dubai and the region. They've had their mediation rules since 2023, and this year we've collaborated with them in organizing the first mediation summit. It took place actually last week, and I was telling Martin and Dave earlier, it was really a success. I mean, the number of people that attended in the first place, the diversity of the crowd was actually incredible. We had not only lawyers, which we usually see in those events, we had businesses, we had consultants, we had even government entities. A lot of government entity representatives were there, and they participated in many capacities. So really, it was a big day for us. It was we felt like, you know, all the efforts we've been doing for the last couple of years, it's materializing. And we got a very good feedback from everyone. We got speakers from many places around the world, traveled just to be with us on this day, and many big names also from the country. So that was, I mean, one of our, initiatives that we're proud of that we did through the Mediation Hub. Also, on that day, that I want to give you some background about. So we tried in the last 2 years to talk to lawyers, obviously, and it was good, of course, but we realized that there is a limit. So every time we're in a conference or a panel, really, it's the same people. If they're interested in mediation, they're going to be there. If they're not going to show up. Or other mediators. So kind of we were just talking to each other, or preaching to the converted, as they say. And we thought the right people, the decision makers, are not in the room. And I think that's a problem in many other markets and jurisdictions, and not only here. And because the country has, one of the maybe the objectives of really supporting mediation is also to encourage investors and to be an investors friendly market. And this is I'm sure it's one of the strategy to encourage mediation. So really you need to speak to the businesses. So we thought about many ways to reach out to businesses, whether through licensing authorities, whether directly with, big companies. But then another idea came to us. We thought that could have an impact. So we launched the UAE Mediation First Pledge. And that pledge is announced obviously on our website. I mean, I'm happy for you to check it. And we really made a business case for mediation. Why businesses should sign this pledge and commit to using mediation first. And we gave them so many, arguments we all as mediators try to use when we want to convince people to use mediation. But also we showed them a different angle, which is ESG. And we did focus on how using mediation in your contracts, or considering mediation as your first resort, could actually have an impact and increasing your ESG rating. And that, I think, had some effect on companies. The pledge is still very new. We did launch it officially at the Mediation Summit last week. And now we're planning some sort of a roadshow, let's say, in the country, across the several emirates, and in collaboration with many government entities and institutions, to try to promote it to businesses directly. And we really think this kind of initiative might have an impact on businesses. But let's see, I'll update you maybe in a few months. How does this go? We're also trying to encourage these companies to, for example, list them and give them a status for their contribution. So if they only sign the pledge, they'll get like a bronze status. If they implement mediation in their contracts, also they get a higher status. If they train their people do capacity building internally, they get a higher status. And want to do some sort of ceremony to award some of them depending on the level of engagement they did. And really, in general, I mean, other than these initiatives and others that we're working on right now, including, for example, trying to set up pro bono mediation schemes with certain entities, particularly because we wanted to provide opportunities for the rising mediators that are members of our organization to really have a place to practice. We're trying to see, I mean, international mediators, if they can take on some people to mentor as well. So trying to, try to bridge and share knowledge. And in general, as the day-to-day activity of the organization is to make sure that anything you need to know about mediation in the region, not only the UAE, you can actually go on our website, whether promoting conferences, whether trainings for everyone. And I'm going to talk about the inclusiveness and neutrality later. Any development, and really in this country, there are a lot of developments, even on a legislative level. Any development we write about, we publish a lot of articles and pieces for our members. We talk about success cases from mediators, obviously on a no-name basis. So we're trying to be really the go-to organization for anything related to mediation. And I think we managed to do some impact so far because we really took it as, we always call ourselves as trustee for this organization with one mission and vision, which is promoting the concept and advancing the profession and really helping to develop even or make recommendations or influence the kind of legislation that apply when it comes to mediation, because we have access to all stakeholders and we can really get feedback and voice everyone's concern. So we made sure from day one to include everyone, to include all private, service providers, all institutions, everyone, and to really make sure that we remain remain neutral and inclusive, because our only objective is really for everyone. I mean, to increase demand in the first place, and for everyone to have really a chance in this market. There was some concerns, I would say, from one of the challenges maybe from lawyers is, we all know, I mean, it's very hard to for lawyers to just go with mediation, automatically, because of many reasons. As I said before, it might be the knowledge, or if they are really familiar with the concept. One, maybe they don't have the required skill to represent their client, but also a lot of people had an issue with the without prejudice. So just as by way of background, as per UAE law, we never had anything in particular that actually protects without prejudice communications and negotiations. And there was always, even if we use without prejudice all the time, but there was always this concern from parties about whether this is enforced. Particular point has been addressed clearly in the last version, or the last UAE mediation federal law, and it has governed without prejudice and confidentiality, and it gave a lot of, let's say, trust in the process, and that was a relief, let's say, for lawyers. Other principles that were also protected, for example, suspension of the limitation period mediation process, that was also covered, even taking precautionary attachments or any measures, preemptive measures that you need to take. Also, from lawyers' perspective, that was also a relief. The fact that if you have a mediation clause and you go to court, if one of the parties raises this, the case will be deemed premature as well. So, and then in the last few years, we saw that these kind of principles protected under the law. They were in practice being honored by the court. So we've seen a lot of precedent about that, and I think that helped a lot in raising the trust in the concept. There's another thing that people now are, encouraged to do, which is enforceable settlement agreement. So after a mediation, whether you do it through the center or ad hoc or institutional, you could actually get it enforced and get a writ of execution. It will be enforceable, same as judgment, and that has given a lot of weight, let's say, to settlement agreements and the process in general. So if I would describe a little bit where we are today as a country, as a UAE market, I mean, we're still waiting to sign the Singapore Convention, and we think this is going to happen very soon. We've seen other countries very recently in the region they signed, like Egypt, Oman, and before that, Saudi, Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar. So we see that the image in the region is really getting completed when it comes to Singapore Convention, and we think the next spot is for us, of course. In terms of demand, we feel that it's been shy. Like with everything I just said, we still notice that the utilization of mediation is still, in a way or another, law or very hard to track, basically. And but we are hopeful that all the initiatives that we are and others are doing, it will actually pay off at some point. We see now a lot of private mediation centers and service providers wanting to enter the market. They see it as a great opportunity, as a greenfield, basically, to be the first to provide these services. So that gives us a lot of hope, I guess. But I really think the focus should be on businesses, and this is what we're trying to do now, to continue what we started with the pledge and others, and talk more to businesses directly, because I think this is where the decision is going to be made. Also, in-house counsels, I would say that could be big. They could be big supporters, because it's a country where mediation is still developing. One of the things I'd really want to hear from all of you about is if you can share your experience from your countries. If you practice in a country where mediation is developed, what advice could you give us that you thought you've tried it and it worked, or maybe you think it will actually work? Also, another thing I would love to hear from all of you about how do rising mediators build a mediation practice? We get this question all the time, but not many people have this developed mediation practice established here in the region. So it's all theory in a way or another. So I really would love to hear from you, and I think that would be shared with all our members as well once this recording is out. And I welcome any questions you might have for me, or anything you'd like me to talk about a little bit more.
Thanks very much, Christine, for now. So if anybody's got any comments or questions, if they can put their virtual hand up. We've got one quick response. David Watkinson, thank you. You haven't unmuted yourself, David. David, you haven't unmuted yourself.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, certainly.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much, Christine, for that very clear exposition about the situation you're dealing with. So my question is very basic. It is, you mentioned a mediation law when you began. I'd like if you could just to give us some highlights from that law as to what is in it. A reason for asking is we don't have a mediation law in the United Kingdom. Mediation is almost entirely an unregulated area. So interested to hear what the contents are when there is a mediation law.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I've touched upon certain aspect of it, but I will give a more like concise summary. So it's called the UAE Federal Mediation and Conciliation Law in Commercial and Civil Disputes, and it is divided into two sections. The first section is about conciliation. And I know there is a lot of theories or definitions about conciliation, maybe from international standards. But what we mean by conciliation in the UAE as a court annex conciliation, these are government or court employees, part of a center, a court annex center. They look into certain cases that the center has to hear on a mandatory basis in certain circumstances, depending on the value or the relationship between the parties. This is mandatory. So you cannot go to court and file a case before you go through this process. What happens there is a conciliator, which is an employee, not, let's call it not a professional mediator, but an employee with conciliation skills. And this is where this as far as the process goes, if they settle, the settlement will become a writ of execution. And if the parties even settle outside, they are able to adopt the settlement agreement within the center. So that's the conciliation part. The mediation part is voluntary mediation or contractual mediation. Of course, if you have a mediation clause in a contract, or if the parties agree following the dispute that they want to refer to mediation and they have a mediation agreement, that's the voluntary or the contractual mediation. You have also the judicial mediation, which is by court referral. So the court, at any stage of the proceedings, if they feel that some circumstances of the case might use mediation, there is relationship between the parties, or really there is no strong legal basis for the case, they might refer the parties to mediation. It's not, you need the consent of both parties. Also, one of the parties could suggest to the other party at any stage of the proceedings to both approval. Also, the law, as I said before, it really governs without prejudice communication, confidentiality of all the mediation process, and the positions of the parties, any offers, anything, any communication within the mediation process. It also gives the right to people to take precautionary measures of any kind during the mediation process. As I mentioned before, the suspension of the limitation period, it will only resume after the process is done. Also, if there is a mediation ongoing and one of the parties attempt to go to court, the court will have to refer them back to the mediator, will not accept the case. Also, I mentioned the prematurity before. So and incentives, by the way, in terms of fees. So it gives some some of the fees, court fees will be waived if parties reach a settlement. So I think there are a lot of clauses or principles in this law that we think it was really needed.
Winsome, if you can if you can mute yourself, please, Winsome. We're getting some feedback.
So as a framework, I think it was great. Of course, there is always areas for improvement based on practice, but still a new law. So that's maybe in general what the law includes. I hope that answers your question.
It's very helpful. Thank you, Christy.
Christine, just expanding on that a bit, can a claimant submit their claim to the court before they've mediated? Because there's a danger with certainly some defendants that they won't take any mediation seriously unless they know that the claimant, has commenced proceedings.
You mean as in the law or in general?
Well, in mediation, but you said that I think you can't go to court unless you've mediated.
No, unless you go to the conciliation in specific types of disputes that are defined in the law. Only
Right.
in those, if your dispute is, I mean, it's covered by one of those categories, then you cannot go to court before you go to the conciliation, which is the court annexed kind of conciliation. But as I said, a
Right.
lot of people today are using it as just a ticking box.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next person I've got,
Sorry, I lost the.
sorry, the next person I've got is Francis Kelly. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, good morning all. Morning, Christine. Thank you so much. That presentation was wonderful.
Hi, good
I firstly wanted to congratulate you on what you've done. I think it's remarkable, and I want to ask you whether anyone has, or you have, taken the time to document what you did, how you did it, and what you learnt from the doing of it, because what you're describing is as relevant to me in my part of England as I suspect it will be for many, many, many people, whether they have a sophisticated mediation system in their neighbourhood, in their jurisdictions, in their countries. So I wanted to ask you whether you've ever had the time or the inclination to capture what you've done, and
Yeah.
if you haven't, would you be interested in having a conversation with me off this topic? Because I'd love to hear, obviously we've heard what you've done, but I'd love to hear more about how you've done it and what you learnt, and therefore what advice you would give to others in a similar position to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Francis. To be honest with you, we grew organically, and everything we've done was really volunteering and putting our time and effort, me and the other members. So we have on the website a lot of maybe articles about things we've done. Initiatives that we've done. We have, for example, the pledge that I mentioned. We have a whole page about the pledge and how to sign it. What is the business case for companies? All that. The summit as well. All the things we've discussed. So some of the things are documented, but I'd love to have a discussion at any time to discuss. I mean, what we've done and our experience, what worked and what didn't work, and this very short period of time. So I'd love to take this conversation forward later.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
I'll leave my thank you. I'll leave my email address in the chat.
That's great.
anyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
I've got Kush Saini. I'm not sure quite how you pronounce it.
Kush Sani. Thank you. Thanks. Hi all. Thank you, Christine. Very informative. Your presentation. Really interesting to see how, what the developments are in other countries. I'm a workplace mediator, and I just wanted, because a lot of the emphasis has been on commercial, civil, even community. I think you've mentioned. Is there a market for workplace mediation at the moment where you are?
It's very interesting you're asking this question, because I mean, it's a green field for workplace mediation. It's one of the things that we were really thinking seriously about recently. And we thought this is how you start changing mindsets. I mean, starting from people within the workplace, trying the concept and understanding its principles. This is, I think, how, because we always target like decision makers and executives and legal counsels and all that, but we really don't get a chance always to talk to the rest of, the uh, the the workforce, let's say. And I really think there is. I would say I haven't seen it yet, and this is why we were talking about it, because one of the things we want to start like promoting at least. But I see a huge value, and for the reason I mentioned before, which is the ESG. So every time you want to promote something, you have to convince them that this is going to actually have a direct impact on some of the objectives of the company. And ESG performance has been really on the forefront of, a lot of discussions in this country and many others. So I think that angle could be easily used to try to implement these kind of programs. I would also say, I mean, I know in the UK and other places, you train certain specific people from the organization, as ombuds, or to do that internally. I'm not sure if this in a market where it's very early, it's a good idea, because they might not have the same kind of understanding or enough experience and practice. So maybe it's a space where other rising mediators could actually do that instead. But I'll definitely, if this is something you're interested in, I'm happy to have a discussion later and see how we can
Sure.
promote it and work together on it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. Somebody's put a question in, posted the question in the chat. Maria Skompopolu. Sure, I've got that, mispronounced that. Maria, would you like to just unmute yourself and repeat your question in your own words?
Yes, of course. And hello to everybody, and especially Christine. Thank you so much for the great session. Actually, I was wondering if, because I have a quick look in your website, and I found volunteer, and I was wondering if somebody from the UK that based on the UK can volunteer from the UK, or it is exclusively to stay and live and practice in Dubai. How is working actually?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria, for the question. And yeah, that brings me to a very good point. I mean, if you noticed from the even professionals category, they're not just from the region. And this is on purpose. We wanted to encourage international mediators that have interest in the region to be there and to showcase their experience and their profiles, and people would be able to look them up, because we also have a directory and a lot of people are using it. As for the volunteers, we do have a lot of volunteers. They basically, many of them are based outside the UAE, because most of the things we do not really require in person. We have a team ourselves, a few people, and not all of them are here. So we kind of work really remotely, and we encourage, and we really would be happy if we have people from different countries bringing different kind of experience, because I think this is what we need. I mean, in a place where things are still, I mean, let's call it primitive.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, you've got your hand up. Bill Macaria. If you can unmute yourself. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Dave. And Masharia, always. Thank you so much, Christine. Beautiful presentation. However, I'm a little bit confused, and I want to be educated by you. And maybe it's because I'm not a lawyer and I didn't quite understand what you're talking about. When you're explaining the conciliation law, and my mind was piqued by your use of a letter of execution. Now, yeah. when you mentioned a letter of execution, it's like you're saying this is a final, this is a decision, just like a court judge will decide. And then at the same time you did mention that these are court employees, and you say that they are not qualified, they are not mediators, they are not lawyers. Yet yeah. they are there working towards writing a letter of execution to be represented in a court of law. I got lost there completely, because it seemed to me that these court employees are acting like what I know as an arbitrator.
Yeah,
And,
no.
and
Yeah.
so please.
Okay, I'll explain, and I'm sorry for the confusion. So, as I said, conciliation is a service provided by the court annex centers. The people who are providing these services there are court employees. They've been trained, but they're not trained mediators. They've been trained to conciliate between the parties, okay? But they're not a professional accredited mediators. They're just trained to conciliate. What they do is they try to conciliate between the parties, and if the parties agree to a settlement agreement, then the settlement agreement can be adopted and given a writ of execution. So they will not deliver or render any kind of decision. They will help the parties to agree on a settlement agreement. And once agreed, this will be given this kind of enforcement privilege. And also, what I mentioned, maybe that was maybe confusing, even if outside the center, people or parties reach a settlement agreement through ad hoc mediation or institutional, they can just go to the same conciliator and say, hey, we agreed, we have a settlement agreement, and then the conciliator will do the same process to give the settlement agreement executory powers. So that's the situation. I hope that answered the question. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you. I
Thank
understand.
you so
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bettina Henty, you've got your hand up. If you can unmute yourself, please, Bettina.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually new to this Breakfast Club, and I'm also new to mediation. And thank you, Christine. It was a very interesting insight, and I particularly kind of interested because you said that you came to the conclusion that to approach businesses is one of the most important kind of steps for you. I am a trained architect, and I have worked for more than 2 decades in a multifaceted architectural practice. And initially, as most architects, you work in the design, technical, creative and technical design. And then obviously moving through your career, I ended, I worked mostly in the governance of complex human and financial kind of interest in those later years. And that obviously, as many will know, the construction industry is full of disputes. And in the later years, I was noticing there is almost a shift in the industry, how people collaborate with each other. I mean, when there are obviously difficult times like recessions or the COVID, the pandemic, obviously issues, people tend to look very much, after their own interest and fighting for survival, I would almost call it. And to me, this manifested in a way that the collaboration which we are supposed to have in the architecture, in the construction, in architectural projects of working with various consultants, stakeholders, authorities, and so forth, this almost started to break down more and more. And even when you tried to come up with, when there were disputes, to find kind of conciliation kind of solutions, it was almost impossible. And I noticed, because I'm also a stakeholder in these meetings, that it was difficult to get people's trust, because you always were associated with whoever is in your business and may have a different approach or opinion. So I really got more and more frustrated, and for various other reasons, I had a bit of had to step out of work for a while, and had time at this moment to ponder over this dilemma, and realized going back into the same arena, facing the same issues, is not what I was prepared to do. So I decided to adjust my career and trained as a commercial and civil mediator, in the hope to, with this more impartial position, neutral position, even as we all know it will never be 100% impartial, but to try now, as you asked as well, to hear from people who are trying to set up the practice.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I'm doing at the moment. And I can't tell you all the answers because I'm just in this process. But obviously, initially, my initial kind of attempt is obviously to try to apply or approach my current network, which is obviously a lot in the kind of construction industry, to make people more, because although mediation has now slightly been introduced in construction contracts, but it is fairly new and it is not really taken up. I think the industry is still very much prone to, who is the strongest, who has got the better, lawyers or financial situation to plow the way through, I'm winning, I'm in the right, and I kind of, push everybody else aside. So I think this is just kind of to give
Thank
you a
you.
bit of an idea.
Thank you, Bettina, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with me. I think really you are in a very, very unique position, because when you're part of the system and try to get out of the system to try to change something about it, I think this is when the impact happens. And you with the experience that you have, because I think one of the maybe the comments we hear often, particularly in construction disputes, a lot of people say, especially lawyers, not anyone could mediate a construction dispute. You need expertise, you need to be evaluative, you need technical skills, not just mediation skills. And to a certain extent, I tend to agree with that. So you have to see more people coming from that side to the mediation side to be able to make a difference. Because I personally, I feel like being very facilitative in complex cases, especially when you have a lot of technicalities in place, you're not going to be able to let parties trust you first, or trust your abilities, for, whether the lawyers or the parties themselves. So I really think you are in a very unique position, and few are the people that actually reach this stage. In the UAE, for example, and the region, construction disputes are, if maybe more than 80-90%, I would say, they're exclusively resolved by arbitration, not even litigation, exclusively. And we started seeing the shift recently, but really very shy compared to the number of cases that goes to mediation because of everything that is at stake. But I've seen a lot of people from our from the network of mediators that we work with and interact with a lot, that this kind of approach, that having a technical background or being one of the stakeholders one day, you know what they're interested in, you know what they're talking about, you know where there is an area to push or to settle or not. So I think you are in a very good place to start this kind of shift. And you're right. Sometimes if there are some financial consideration on both sides, it's very hard to change mindset. If they have some instructions, parties have instructions to execute something, or there is a cash flow issue or something like that. But I really think once they go into the legal process with the litigation arbitration and start paying all the money, and I think this is when you actually can go back and try to dissuade them. But thank you for sharing.
I think one comment. Sorry, carry on, Bettina.
No, I was just saying, I've just seen the comment from Andrew. Maybe Andrew can come in, because obviously, as I said, in my experience, mediation hasn't really taken place so much. And I'm very much, was involved with quite a few disputes, and the time, and maybe it is the business I worked for, that they are more, more traditionally kind of went for the, because they have very good connections to quite good lawyers, so that they are kind of referred to this in the first instance. But I was often the party who had to dig through all the correspondence, and that a lot of my time was taken by trying to provide the lawyers with all the
Sorry, Bettina, you've frozen for the moment. Can I make a?
end, most end up in
Sorry, could
Sorry?
you repeat that last 30 seconds or so, Bettina, please? You were
I
frozen.
said I was involved in a few disputes and I had to provide to feed the lawyers or the case with these things. And obviously, a lot of time is taken away from your actual kind of day work to provide this information. And in the end, most disputes ended up in a shared kind of win or lose situation. So obviously this was one of the reasons why I thought, why going through this painful long process must be so. But I would be interested to hear from Andrew, because Andrew, I've seen that he put in the chat that he has the experience of lots of mediation taking place.
Can I just say that we're a little bit short of time, so maybe Derek's got his hand up, and Gerard Tomney put something in the post. Can I take your comment first, Gerard, if you are happy to repeat what you were saying?
Thanks, Dave. Morning, all. Yeah, it was just I've said in the chat for those that haven't seen it. An old wisdom figure friend of mine used to say that people are people the world over, Christine. And I was just, and that's my experience. I'm sure it's everyone's experience. But I was just wondering, in terms of the work that you do in the UAE, are there any cultural differences that we need to be aware of? Is there any sort of historical, traditional way of negotiating, for example, or are people the world over?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, and there are many because, as I said before, I mean, let's say in the UAE we have, the local population. You have Arabs from different countries from the region, and you have Western, and they're all part of this, market, and you see most of them in different kind of disputes. So I think a lot of adjustment need to happen, and more of preparation and getting to know who's on the other side before you actually go, not only from background and all that, but also from cultural perspective, a language considerations. In general, I mean, it's not an adversarial culture, and people like to save face, and they don't want to acknowledge that they've done something wrong, and maybe very hard to give apologies, but they would favor amicable solutions over and this is the culture actually in the UAE, and it's been like that for a long time. They always have this the elder in the community that would bring everyone and try to facilitate conflict or disputes. But a lot of cultural differences. I think a lot of Western or international mediators, when they come to the region, they have this kind of difficulties adjusting, and sometimes they get co-mediators with them from the region, whether because they speak the language or because there are some nuances. Sometimes it's religious, sometimes it's more of a culture. And there are some kind of like respect and hierarchy. Sometimes you have to call people with a certain title and make sure you do that. So I would always say, for any international mediator wanting to mediate in the region, ask a friend, like talk to any local, friend or another mediator, get some insights, because a lot of preparation potentially needs to be done before you do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. I think we've got time for maybe a couple more. Derek's got his hand up. Derek Marshall, please.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only one thing that drives reluctant parties to mediation, and that's the fear of the cost consequences of not doing so. Either the thought that if you don't go to mediation, even if you succeed, you might not get all of your costs, or the idea that not going to mediation is itself a cost unreasonable thing to do in litigation. I think there is a culture in the UK now where you're expected to go to mediation. If you don't, you've got to show a good reason why not. And you might well find that there's an adverse cost consequence for not doing so. And I think that's a major driver actually behind mediation. So my question is, do you have that same costs consequence in the US? I see you're not shaking your head. No, you don't.
No, because we talk about this element a lot when we discuss what can we do, what can we suggest or propose, and it's one of the things. No, they're not. So a lot of, I mean, there are some general principles in the law about delaying the process or unnecessarily delaying the process and all that, but there are no cost consequences, and I think that should happen if we are serious about really promoting mediation. You need a carrot and a stick. So I think the stick is not there. We're still trying to use the carrot so far. But yeah, it's a very good point actually you're raising. Thank you.
We've got time for one more if anybody has any comment or question. Otherwise, I'd just like to thank Christine. It's been a wonderful session. Christine has put her email address in the chat, so if you want to make direct contact, I'm sure that she would be very helpful. Happy to speak to you. I can see one clapping hand coming up. So thank you very much, Christine.